Hi, welcome to First Trinity's 2025 All Church Study, uh, A Praying Life. I am super excited. You could make a case that I'm always super excited, but I'm super excited in some special ways about this book. I can tell you that I first read it maybe 12 or 13 years ago, and I'm a big reader, but I'm not a person who rereads books. But I have returned to this book several times because it had such an impact on my prayer life. And that's what I've been praying for you as well. So I'm so glad you're here. The all church study at First Trinity is when we send our focus as a body of believers all in one direction. We all get in the boat and row towards the same destination for a few weeks. And we do this by reading a book together, discussing the book, and we even get to hear about some of the content in our sermons. And it's a very, I just love this time in our congregation, and I'm so glad that you're a part of it. This book has a great subtitle, A Praying Life, Connecting with God in a Distracting World. I don't know about you, but I find that of the many things that are going on in today's world, distraction is just a huge problem. And it's a huge problem for me. And it does impact my relationship with the Lord and my time of being with Him and talking with Him. So I, uh, I think it's just exactly right for this time in our culture. If you do have a copy handy, I want to invite you to take a look at the table of contents uh, because I'll just give you a quick idea of each week's theme. So there's a bookmark that we have for your book that gives you the reading guide, but for next week in part one, we'll be learning to pray like a child. And I want you to notice that these parts, many of them use the word learning. And in the second part, it's learning to trust again. I'm going to talk about that with you a little bit in just a little bit here, why we have struggles trusting Jesus. Part three, learning to ask your Father. And here's what I like about these learning titles for the parts, it means it is possible to learn how to do these things with practice. And then part four, living in your Father's story. As Pastor Jason likes to say, we go to God's Word because we are actually part of God's story more than He is part of ours. And we want to see ourselves in the way our Father orders the world. And prayer can help us do that. Part five in the book is called Praying in Real Life. We are actually not going to address that directly, like with a whole lesson, but it has some practical tips and tools for praying, and we will use those throughout the study. And so that's kind of how that's going to work. I also just want to make a little bit of a case for reading. I don't know where you're at with reading, if you like to read, if you would say, I'm really not a reader, if you like audiobooks, which to me, they count. But it is, I would like for you to give a shot at reading. I think that reading in this day is super important because it's a way of calming our minds and focusing on something with all the distractions that go on. And if you have trouble keeping your focus and attention on your book, it's really a great idea to just keep at it because I feel like you can learn to do that. And so many good things come from reading. Now, having said that, if you don't read the book or if you don't read the section for any given week, please still come and participate. You bring with you your own experience of prayer or non experience of prayer and your thoughts and uh, connections really matter here. So don't let not reading keep you away from the study. Also, if you don't come one week, please just come back the next week. You're always welcome to come back. Just in general, as we launch into this study, I want to address a couple things that are in the first two chapters of A Praying Life. The first is the concept of cynicism, quiet cynicism, or maybe you would call it spiritual weariness. This is what can happen inside of us when we have prayed heartfelt prayers that seem to go unanswered. That's hard. And maybe we don't even reflect on our own doubts because we're afraid that makes us a bad Christian if we have doubts. And eventually, what happens is our hearts shut down. We stop praying very much, or our prayers become kind of perfunctory and not real because we are just cynical that praying makes any difference, any real difference at all. I think that this book is going to help us address that kind of quiet cynicism. The other piece is that our culture, the United States culture, makes it really hard to pray because we are so focused on accomplishment or production, producing something, and prayer feels like, well, we're just talking to God. It might seem useless or not effective or efficient. Jesus says in John chapter 15, verses 4 to 7, "Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me." Abide is a word that means stay with, remain with. I am the vine, Jesus says. You are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. Wow. What a promise. Now, friends, it's really tempting to make any study about prayer about what you do. And it's so important that we remember that prayer is our response to what God has already done for us and in us in Jesus Christ. Prayer is really showing up to a God who already loves you. You don't have to accomplish a thing. You only need abide in him. Now, in chapter 2 of A Praying Life, Paul Miller, the author, tries to give us a couple of images that help us think about what we're hoping to accomplish or what we're aiming for in a praying life. And I just thought I'd talk about a couple of those. One is, he says, the praying life feels like dinner with good friends. I love that metaphor because when I'm hanging out with my friends for dinner, there's no agenda. We're simply enjoying one another, talking about whatever comes into our minds, laughing, and so relaxed. It's like the best of us when that happens. Listen to what Jesus says about eating with us. This is from Revelation 3, verse 20. He says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me." Prayer is quite simply hanging out with Jesus in the midst of our life. And that's the second point I wanted to talk about from chapter 2. The praying life is interconnected with all of life. We do not learn to pray in isolation from the rest of our lives. It's like a process of maturing. What Paul Miller says on page 9 is, don't hunt for a feeling in prayer. Just show up. It's much more like a slow, steady process filled with ups and downs that is lifelong. We don't achieve it or accomplish it. Learning to pray, he says, doesn't offer us a less busy life, it offers us a less busy heart. Isn't that beautiful? That is my prayer for us as we start this study. As we dig into what God says about prayer, as we learn to come to Him messy, you'll hear about that in the coming weeks, come to Him just as we are, without prettying ourselves up, cleaning ourselves out. Just come to Him as we are. We learn to walk in a maturing relationship with God. I think it's going to be great. You're going to have some time now in your at your tables or in your small group to have conversation. There's a study guide and a leader to help you go through those questions. This is a time to pay attention to each other and to God's word. One really cool thing I thought Paul Miller said is the ironic thing is when we struggle with prayer, we're paying way too much attention to what we do and taking our attention off God. And so let's just agree together that as we learn how to pray, learn how to live the praying life, we're going to keep our eyes on Jesus. We're going to focus on Him and our relationship with Him. Enjoy the conversation. So glad you're here. Thanks.